What's happening? All right, I'm here today with my buddy Steve Branch, and I know he's busy as can be, but I appreciate him taking time. I just wanted to sit down with him just a minute, share with him a little bit. One of the things that I believe, Steve, is
Yes.
this: I believe there are treasures. I believe there's people that have advice, that have wisdom, have experience that you can't get other places, and
Yes,
I
sir.
believe they're here in the mountains.
Yeah.
They're treasures. I believe that. And when I think about that, I mean, my Lord, you've had some life experience. That's it's tremendous. Okay, and you can't get that in college. You can't get that out of
No.
a book.
No, sir.
And 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 I believe you got that. Okay, and I respect you for that. It's important that we do those things and do those. Well, Steve, tell me about this church.
Oh my word! How long you got this thing? What we experience. The good news is, it's not just us, but we're seeing a breakthrough. Men and women being delivered from drugs,
Okay.
and lives are being transformed. Matter of fact, we got a team going to Bristol this Saturday to go
Okay.
feed the hungry, it's led by these men and women who've been there, done that,
Right.
and Jesus set free.
Yeah.
And that they're just wanting to go and share the good news, give out clothes, give out whatever they can, and
Right.
just to give hope to the people. But
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing, and it's been so many miracles what God has been doing in people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's not Steve Branch, it's not Destiny, it's just pure old Jesus, man. I love it when it gets
Right.
like that.
Absolutely. Well, I think too, as you're sharing too, are there people when we talk about doing what they're talking about doing? I mean, are there people in those areas that are there homeless? Are there people that need help? Are they there?
Yes, sir. They are there. And that was kind of a shock to me, as they go up there, probably 50 or 60 people up there. They'll be coming. Matter of fact, they got a gentleman coming and doing haircuts.
Huh.
And a little girl, they said last time they went, they do once a month. And they said this little 8-year-old girl, her hair she was on the streets, living homeless,
Right.
and her hair was all matted up. And they got in there, and he cut her hair, and she was just blown away. And he braided it for her
Yeah.
over here at the whole old town,
Right.
Corey Brewster.
Uh-huh.
And I'm telling you, these guys are sacrificing.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing them come. We had a gentleman last night minister.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm just seeing these guys step up, and the maturity that they're doing and going and just
Right.
being. It's just mind blowing. It's
You-
exciting.
One of the things I think we see, and this is what happens, the need looks so big that people don't know how to help. Does
Right.
that make sense?
Right. Yes, sir.
And so I mean, have you seen that in people? Sometimes people just seem like they don't know what to do. They want to help,
Right.
but they really don't know how to start or what to do. We shared this some like with people in North Carolina and places like
Oh,
that. They're
yeah.
going through the catastrophe. But they really recommend you don't just come in there with a shovel and do something, but you contact somebody and you have a relationship. But I think there's people that want to help, like you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
But how would they start? What would they do?
You know how they started? They were on the streets.
Mhm.
They were on the streets. They gave their testimonies. Brother Aaron and Christy, they were down in Myrtle Beach, and they were freezing to death. They would sometimes a door of a hotel would be open. They would go in and sleep. And one day they were so cold on the beach that he begged somebody upstairs to please give me a blanket.
Right.
And he overdosed. And if you know anything about Narcan, usually 2 shots you'd get back, but he had 4. He
Nice.
was dead, and he was blue
Yeah.
and cold, and God just raised him up. And he said, Pastor, that's what God did for me. And so his experience is he's taking him back to help
Right.
people where he was at.
Right.
And it's been amazing. But they're excited. They're probably like 20, 30 people
Man.
last month go from different churches too. That's a good thing.
That's great. Yeah.
And
yeah.
just go and
yeah.
clothes and whatever they can do to help, man.
Man, that's tremendous. You know, sometimes you just got to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, a lot of times we're waiting to do it when it's perfect.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to do something. I had a fellow a while back, he was telling me about wanting to pastor a church and wanting to do this. And I said, listen, what you need to do before you do that, you need to get you about 10 folding chairs.
Yeah.
And get you one of those expandable tents like you get that come in the sleeve,
Right.
like they sell at Walmart and Sam's.
Right.
And stretch it out. Get you somebody to come along and play guitar. They always do. And I said, start there first.
Right.
And then I said, but you need to use something.
Yeah. Do something.
Do something until you can do something.
What's in
better.
your hand?
Exactly.
Take your bed up and walk. And I think that's a lot of the
Yeah.
problem. We're waiting for like you said, the perfection. We're not going to get it.
Right.
And if we don't start, it never get done.
Right.
And I think that's what we're waiting on. And somehow we're waiting for a big revelation. But I think the revelation is Jesus Christ has saved us.
Mm-hmm.
And go out and tell other people about me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to get up there, like you said, doing things. Some of our people been saved now about 2-3 years, and they're on fire for Jesus. Right. And I got mosh pitted one night by one of these guys, and I thought to myself, I was like, man, I said, what are people going to think? This guy came bouncing off of me and just in worship and dancing, and he hit me, and he failed, but I don't think he failed, John. But I was thinking in my mind, I said, what are people going to think? But it hit me. He said, if you knew where this guy came from, you too would be dancing. We forgot where we came from. This guy he was in Oregon, and on the streets of Washington, and his purpose, he said, I want to die. I literally suicide on the streets.
Man.
That was his hope. That was his, that's what he felt like. I have no more hope.
Yes,
I met him at Applebee's.
Beautiful.
I met him one day, and he was a waiter. I didn't know him.
Right.
And he came up there, and he came up and talked to me. He said, I've got to meet this guy. He said, he's funnier than I am.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my word. And 2 years later, he came back, and I told him about Celebrate Recovery and what God can do in his life.
Right.
2 years later or so, he came back. He said, do you remember me? I said, no. He said, I'm the guy you met at Applebee's.
Beautiful.
And man, now he's heading up a ministry.
Yeah.
And what God is doing, and he's going hard at it, man. What God, it's just, again, not forgetting where we came from.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I think it's beautiful. Let's touch on a topic here that I want to hit on this a little bit. And how long have you pastored?
Pastored?
Mm-hmm.
Probably I was ordained in 1976, 78, something like that. So what, about 50 years?
So you started when you was like 10?
Yes, 2, 3. I was really 2.
Okay. All right, so what we think about, there's pastors, and this is a theory that I have, okay? And I believe everything's flexible. I mean, I understand this, but some pastors get into doing some things, and not just pastors, but evangelists, and they seem like they get all out of whack, and they're always tired, and their families are catastrophes.
Yeah.
And I believe what happens is sometimes we do everything we can do instead of what God has told us to do.
Yes, sir.
And you can overload yourself.
Yes, sir.
I believe that Noah built one ark. It wasn't an ark ministry.
Right.
He didn't go from town to town teaching people how to build arks.
That's good work.
And I think that when we focus on and I think I think there's a natural gift, and then there's a gift we learn.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, and so when this natural part of you, I believe the apostolic calling is a manager too. Right. I believe you can manage, and you manage gifted people.
Yes, sir.
And I've shared before, there's gifted people that are on the edge of crazy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because they're so gifted.
Yeah.
It's like
they're out there.
They're out there. So it takes somebody to sort of help direct them.
Yeah.
And to guide them. And I mean, do you see those type of things in the ministry?
I do. I do, and I think that's a lot of the pastors. They don't have I don't know. If I could go back, I would do more in the art or skill of ministration, because I think that's where a lot of pastors fail, because they can preach, but we think somehow pastoring is just the pulpit, and it's not. No. It's other things. It's taking that, like you said, and shepherding and helping, that we begin to raise up the flock, because. Here's how I feel. Pastors birth pastors. Sheep birth sheep. Now we're good at getting people to make a decision, but we're terrible about making disciples.
Right.
And that's what we're focusing on now, is making disciples, not trying a cult or anything like that.
Right.
But some of these guys have been saved. They don't even know the word.
Right.
And it's not that we're challenging them. We know more about the blessings of God, but also the holiness and righteousness of God, that God wants to live through us.
Yeah.
And it's that love we have from the pew out here. I said, this is the mission field.
Right.
And this is the mission field right here.
I believe that. I think that's so important. Because he said, "Go ye, not come y'all."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
right.
think sometimes it's easy to get out of whack on that, and it's the easiest thing to do.
It is.
And sometimes our heart can override our ability.
Yes, sir.
And it really can. All right. Well, we talked about the church. We talked about pastoring. Okay. Now let's talk about family.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about your family.
Awesome. I got 4 amazing children. I've
Okay.
been blessed. And we have 11 grandchildren, 2 girls and 9 boys.
My goodness.
Yeah, crop full. But we, and I think in some forms of fashion, they're all involved in ministry.
Yeah.
And because what I tried to do is keep all the problems of the church away from them, because I wanted them to know that it's
Beautiful.
about Jesus,
Yeah.
because it's not about his crazy kids.
Yes, sir.
And when they had ball games, I know people like, "What, you're crazy?" And I said, "No." There was times I wanted them to know that my first ministry is God, and then my family, and then the church.
Right.
And I've talked to a lot of children of pastors, and they're mad because the church took them away,
Right.
and that's how they see it. But no, I
Yeah.
said, there was times I'd not cancel. I'd get somebody else to speak on Wednesday night when my child was going to play volleyball or baseball, football,
Yeah.
and because I wanted them to know they're just as important as
Right.
sister so and so.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
and that's I've met a lot of kids that just hate church, hates Jesus, because they feel like they took them or what my parents away from me.
Yeah.
And so I've done everything I can. And matter of fact, I told our praise and worship leader, which is our daughter, her son was sick. I said, "You stay home.
Yeah.
Stay home with your son. That's more important than anything else."
Absolutely. Yeah.
I said, just, and I've told them all the time, I said, "You're doing too much. Slow it down.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of yourself, nobody else will."
I think that's beautiful. It's a word of wisdom when you
Yeah.
do that. All right. So we've talked about family. We've talked about church. Let's talk about marriage.
Okay, I got one.
Okay, you got one. So you are married. I
Yes,
got
sir.
it because there's we have a lot of single women. They ask questions.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's deal with this. Tell me about marriage. What makes a good marriage?
I think it is. My wife the other day, we just celebrated 44 years and the anniversary. And what concerned me the most is she says, "I don't believe in divorce, but she does believe in murder." And then the other day she asked me, "Steve, can I get a concealed weapon?" I'm like, "Wait a minute. Wait, something's wrong with this picture. I'm too big to miss." But I think the thing is Jesus Christ, and I still date my wife.
Uh-huh.
And because I found a lot of times over the years, marriages break up about 20, 25, 26 years. And I've heard people discuss that, and I was kind of questioning why
Right.
in that time
Right.
frame. The reason why I think about it is because a lot of the children have gone. And so what we've done is we've made our children the center of our attention.
Right.
And then when they're out of the picture, we don't know each other.
Right.
We
Makes
just don't
sense.
know the
Yeah.
relationship. We don't know,
Right.
even though we've been married to them.
Mhm.
But the thing that kept us together is a ball game, or that kept us together was we're doing something for the children. But then when it came down, they're gone.
Yeah.
We don't know each other. So I didn't want to make didn't want to make that mistake that I wanted to date. I still date my wife. Matter of fact, she's going to be coming here in a little bit
Mhm.
afterwards, and I'm going to take her out. We're going
Yeah.
to do the right thing. We're going to vote first, and then. But
I'm scared to early vote.
Yeah.
Okay, I just really am. I'm in my family. A lot of them have already
I
early
know.
voted, but I'm scared to death. I said I'm gonna stand in that line, and I'm just gonna do it. All right?
Yes.
I want to early vote. Don't get me wrong. Every time I drive by and see those people, I think I should go in there and vote. But I share one time it very quickly. But one time I was voting, and when I went in to vote, I told the man, I said, "Now I'm doing this because my uncle says I can't go to heaven if I don't vote."
Oh no.
But I said, "I know you're gonna steal it when it gets up north, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to go ahead and get this done."
Yeah.
Well, all right. So marriage, we're talking about. So are there keys you think in a good marriage? Are there some? I know we're talking about dating. I understand that. I see that. I've heard about it. But are there some keys in here in communication? Are there keys in patience and long suffering? I mean,
all that. And that's just her part for me.
Yeah.
I heard years ago about the 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what? 80-20? And they described it this way: 80% of your marriage is awesome, but it's that 20% that causes us to stumble. And I think that's what we have to get to the place of dealing with those issues that aggravate us. She squeezes the toothpaste from the back. I want my toilet paper under. I mean, it's just little foxes that will destroy your marriage. It's not the big stuff.
Yes, sir.
And then we get dissatisfied, and then we start thinking that I can help someone on Facebook, and before long you find yourself in an emotional affair.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that focus on who you have. God's blessed you with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing. Keep him first. That's the main thing.
Right.
And there's always going to be situations and problems that you're going to struggle with. Finances. Right now with finances, families are devastated.
Yeah.
but that's where we have to put our trust in the Lord and
Absolutely.
help us.
I agree with that. All right. I understand. All right. So what we could do, and I know it's hard to do this, make this kind of commitment, but if you had to make a commitment today and say Steve Branch could do this to make him a better husband, I mean something that you absolutely. I mean, and I know we think, and I know I could ask your children, they would tell me, your wife,
lot of
they
stuff.
would tell me. But when you think about, if you could, this is one thing, because I've got things in my life that I've focused on. I mean,
Right.
I don't leave anything out when I go to bed. I make sure everything is picked up and there's not a pop can, there's not a piece of paper.
Right.
I'm real big on making sure the dishes are done. I don't want to leave anything for. I try to make sure that I don't leave anything laying on the floor. I mean, I've just started doing this. I just started taking the garbage out. I've been married 42 years. I just started taking the garbage because I moved the cans closer to the door. But I mean, if you had to commit to one thing in your mind when you think about what would make you a better husband,
I think the thing you tapped on it, and I think the thing is that work on me. I think for so long we try to change our mate and spouse, and I think the problem is that becomes manipulation. Or she's not doing what I want her to do, but I don't think that. What I would do is try to work on me, my attitudes, because when I was earlier in the ministry, I really had a major league temper, and it was just short fused and hurt and rejected because I brought all that stuff into the home.
right?
And so God began to work on me, sanctify me to be a better vessel for her. So before I married her, there was a prophecy that was given. I think Oral Roberts or somebody from Oral Roberts gave it and said, ask God to work on you, and then ask God to work on the family of your bride. And I did that. And matter of fact, I prayed even in the womb. I prayed for our children that God, you prepare their spouse, prepare the family.
Right. But now, I admire you, okay? But I think you're selling me just a little bit. All right. I mean you. I mean something specifically. And we think of things, and I know that I'm trying to do better. Okay, I am doing better. But I mean, when you think about that, something to make your wife's life better, that you could do something to make your home better, something that you could do. Is there anything?
Well,
and if there's not, it's okay.
No. I think I've still got a lot. I'm like you. I still got a lot of room.
That halo and wings. And
hey. No, I think the thing is, and again, the things I'm working on within me to make me a better husband, a better Christian first, but a better husband is again be who I am in that pulpit at home.
Okay.
And I think that's what Jack slapped me one time years and years ago when I was pastoring in Florida. She looked at me and she said, and it just crushed me, and she was right. She said, Steve, I wish you were as nice to me as you are to the people.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Jack slapped me.
Yeah.
And she's right.
That's
I was
beautiful.
busted.
Yeah.
I was busted because I was one thing in the pool. I was nice to people.
That was great she said that, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean,
it hurt, but it was because then I began to see my attitudes.
Yeah.
I began to see my actions, my responses to her compared, and I would bring the problems home. And that's not where they should be. They should be left at the altar as we encourage our people to do. So I'm learning that, and again just be able to share and communicate with her.
Okay. I like that. But I want to go just a little bit deeper.
All right.
If I can.
Please.
Around the house, what could you do better?
Well, I think the thing is I'm doing my best to help her in the sense of try to find a need and fill it, and find a hurt and heal it. And I'm doing my best to help and find her needs, because she had COVID and almost died. So my whole perspective has changed. I wish I could say that there was a finger that I could put on and this is that, but I'm just trying to be. Life is short.
Yeah.
And I have something I'm just trying to be the man of God that He's called me to be to my wife, to that she can see Christ in me.
Yeah.
And not just the community, but in me. But my whole perspective has changed, honestly, because that I almost lost her about 3 years ago.
Right. We went through, Janice had meningitis.
Oh.
And buddy, it was and had it for a couple of days before we really knew what it was.
Wow.
And when we got her there, they said, she could die from this.
Yeah.
It was, and there's really nothing they could do when they got done to the end. But we come through that. But there's stuff that happens, man.
But I think the thing is now, honestly, I try to think eternally. If my last words.
I guess what I want to do, I want to make it a little hard. Okay.
Do I wash the dishes?
See,
Yes. I
this
put
is
them
what
in
I
the
mean. That's what I'm
dishwasher.
shooting for. Okay. I mean, do you wash the dishes?
Yes, I do. I
you
even wash
vacuum?
clothes.
Do you pick up your clothes?
Oh, I pick them up. If not, they'll walk off.
Do you wipe the sink off?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
see, now I like this.
Yeah.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Now we're getting
See,
somewhere.
I mean,
I'm just, you know,
I appreciate the heavenly stuff.
Oh, man.
I'm trying to get you down here to where the auric is and the dawn.
but everybody's
and the
looking is
scrub
that.
brush. I
Yeah.
want you to make a commitment that we can look back on and say, hey, he said he was going to pick up after
Did
himself.
she call you?
You know, I mean, you know, there's things that we look at, and these are important things. I really believe.
Yeah, they are.
You know, all right. So we've done pretty good. I've not got you commit. I've done as good as anybody in the world could do, getting you in there and that commitment. I like that. All right, let's talk about this. Do you cook? You do any
I
cooking?
do. I grill out, stuff like that.
Good.
And yeah, I love grilling, and so when the weather's good, I try
Right.
to do my best to do it and smoke stuff and have a good time at doing that.
I enjoy cooking. I like cooking. You know, in the Hawaiian culture, it's a sign of affection. I'm not Hawaiian. I'm Irish,
But you eat
I think
pineapple.
I-
That's close enough.
I enjoy it, but you know, I think cooking around. I cook a lot, and I just think that I like for my wife to be able to sit down.
Yeah.
And I like to cook and get those meals ready and sit it on the table and say supper's ready, you know, and
Well,
do
that's a
that
blessing.
because for years I didn't do that. I mean, we had 8 restaurants and I didn't really cook.
My word. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, both of us worked for McDonald's for almost 10 years, but I mean, the cooking part that I do now, I enjoy that because I want her to be able just to rest.
Yeah,
her to sit there
that's
and do
good.
that, and I think that helps a lot.
So what's her love language?
You know, I think it is. I think what is it's long suffering, as far as she doesn't get excited.
Yeah.
You know, and when we talk about stuff a lot, she says, whatever you would like to do, that's what I would like to do.
Yeah.
And whatever you would like to eat, and then she generally changes that some. But I mean, you know, she'd like to eat, but I want chicken thighs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She says that. But I think that when we get into that, the understanding and the patience, and we've had a real good relationship, Janice and I have, and we don't do not a lot of arguing. I'm not.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad could start arguing about the windshield wipers, and it would last a good hour. Okay,
Oh, no.
okay, but they liked that, and that was their nature.
Yeah.
And I've got friends that love to do that, but I mean, we just don't do a lot of arguing.
That's good.
And I never was a big arguer. I didn't mind a fist fight, but I didn't like to argue.
Right.
I just don't like that. I like to say, now we're going to have to fight if you keep doing that. You know, I don't want you to take that wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think I'm mad at you. So I think that when we work with them, and I believe relationships come strong, and there's some of these things that are natural. I think natural gifts, and you've got natural gifts that you walk in that you don't even know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so beautiful. All right, let's talk about this.
All right, go for it.
I mean, I think it's great when we pray and God answers prayer. That's really cool. But the things that God does that we don't ask for.
Right.
And I studied for a year about the relationship of God the Father, just the Father. And I think about how I am with my children, as rotten as I am, that I look for things. I'm looking, trying to figure what do they want, what do they need. And they don't have to come and ask me.
Right.
And I know we teach people to pray and ask God and ask and receive. And I understand all that. But I think it's so powerful, our relationship of the things that God does that we never ask for.
Yeah. I found that God is not a religious God. He's a relational God. And a lot of times we treat him as religion, that
Right.
somehow if I do certain things, he's going to love me and do more.
Right?
He's given us his son, Jesus Christ, born of the Virgin Mary, and he lived, he died, he rose again, and I believe with all my heart coming back soon.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what he wants to restore is that koinonia, as it says in 2 Corinthians 14, that have fellowship. The word there in the Greek is koinonia, which means communion.
Okay.
And I think that's what, like you said, the Father, he wants to have a relationship like he did with Adam and Eve, to walk with us. That's that old song, he walks with us
Right.
and talks with us along with the weary way. That I think that we think somehow it just happens in the church, but God wants to empower us, like you said, that relationship as a father,
Right.
Abba, daddy, Papa. I mean,
Mhm.
if you want to get loose with that, but that's what it literally means, daddy, God.
Yeah.
And I think that he wants to have that kind of relationship with us to to walk with us and to know our hearts, and that we know his heart, that what he wants from us.
Right.
And I think that that's a two-way street. But I think you're right. I think it's so simple that we make it so hard, though, don't we?
You know, the church, we went through such a stage, in my opinion, that you know, every I had to be dotted just right,
Yep.
and every T crossed just perfect. And I'm thinking, my kids don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm just an old man, and I'm thinking, if God is as great as you say he is, and he loves like, if he is love, then I'm thinking, you know, he's looking for ways to do for me the things that I don't even, and I'm going to say this, and I may take some hits, but I can take it. I'm 65. What are they going to do to me? Okay. But I mean, there's so little that I actually pray and ask God to do for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so blessed. Okay. And I see so much happen in my life that I have so little to do with, that he knew better than I knew.
Yeah.
And I said this, if God is so smart, why do we boss him around so much?
And that is the situation we find ourselves in a lot of times. And I'd like to develop I think I heard years ago, Catherine Kuhlman, you know, just an attitude of prayer.
Right.
And then, like you said, he does those supernatural surprises.
Yeah.
Things that a contract that you didn't even realize was on your table. Next thing you know, it's there.
Yeah.
Hey, son, I know you're there.
Right.
You know, and the walking with you and talking with you. I think that is birthed out of a relationship, not out of religion, and a relationship that he loves you. And like you said, for your children, you love them, and you'll do anything you can.
Yeah.
To help them. And I know he's even greater love.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
If God is as great as we say he is, then how much more I think about the things in my life that God puts in series. My kids are always so afraid to be interested in anything, because if I do, man, I jump in full force.
Right.
Okay. My boy one time, Colson liked to wrestle. He's a big old boy. Yeah. He got to watch him wrestle and took him to some pay-per-views, and he got to liking it. So he went and took a class and was wrestling. And I said, well, let's buy a ring. You know what I mean? If we're going to do this, let's buy a ring. We can be promoters. We can do this. So he had to go to his mom and get me to stop.
Oh no.
Okay, because anything I thought I seen I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm like that, just as rotten as I am, I think, man, how much God looks down and says, what more what can I do for you?
Yeah.
And I just think there's so much that we work in time. I've shared with my kids before. I said, listen, I'll be there for you, and I'll do for you, and I'll help you, as long as you're not hind ends.
Yeah.
I said, if you're hateful and you're rude, and you're hind end, I said, now I still love you, but I'll keep my money in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll let you make your own way. But now, as long as you're nice,
Yeah.
and I think to be nice, and I think this comes back to marriage, where we're talking about, you would have to back me plumb in the corner to ever get me to be mean to you.
Right.
And I'm thinking, so, but there's husbands and wives that are like that, but they go home and talk mean to each other.
Yeah.
And but I mean, all right, let's talk about this.
Oh my
There's
goodness.
something that's interesting to me.
Talk to me.
I've had prayers answered.
Gotcha.
And I think when we pray for something sometimes, or we're not even praying, it's just something God is trying to do in our life. Meanwhile, he's doing things for 5 other people that lead up to what he's done for us. Right. Here's an example. I had a building that I wanted to sell. Okay. And I wanted to sell this building. But meanwhile, there's some people down here that wanted to buy the building. But so a coal company came along and bought their property for way more than what it should have been bought for. Bless them.
Good.
They came, bought my building for way more than it should have been bought for. Then I went over and bought another believer's property that they had been trying to sell for years.
Wow.
So what it is, I believe so many times in our life, there's a series of events. For example, you know, we go into the doctor's office to see a doctor.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, there may be an aunt praying that her doctor would come across someone that would lead them to the Lord, or they would see a miracle.
Right.
We go in, we think it's all about us getting healed.
Right.
Meanwhile, God is trying to move for this mother praying for her son, who's a doctor. And I think this series of events is so fascinating.
Well, I think the thing we look at there is God's more concerned he's more concerned with us than he is with our circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like you said, those things that God, if you look behind the scenes, he's already working. And I love this statement, because Brother Bishop Gerald Doggett shared this, and it's impacted me so much. And he said simply this: he said, "This is a day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it." He said, listen to that. He said, psychics, they predict your future. But you see, the thing is, he's not a psychic. He's not predicting your future. He is creating your future.
Okay.
So when he speaks a word to you, he's not telling you, "Oh, I think this is what's going to happen." He is already there and
Right.
creating it. And like you said, those divine appointments, like this person met this person, and just to think out of Psalms 139 that he said before, you were even formed out of your mother's womb,
Yeah.
that he has ordained your days. So on this October 20, whatever it is, 23rd, 24th. All right, John, put a phone call and say, "Steve, let's get together today."
Yeah.
I didn't know it, but you didn't know it. Let's do it.
And it's beautiful how these things cycle. I mean, I'm so fascinated by that.
Yeah.
And I love people. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And at this point in my life, about all I'm good for is talking. Okay. I try to do some other manual labor, but I'm not as good at it as I used to be. I'm a little bit of a sissy, but I think of how the people and how I look and see the miracles that God has done and how he works along in those things. All right. We covered some important stuff. I'm not saying we haven't. Marriage, church, the Lord, prayer, all that stuff's good. Let's talk about something else.
Talk to me.
Let's talk about money. Okay, now you drive a nice vehicle. I'd say you keep your power bill turned, you keep your power paid, probably pretty much on your phone bill, groceries, things like that. I mean, what are some keys you could give people out there? And people can get born again and still die broke.
Yes, sir.
People be millionaires and die broke.
Yes, sir.
I've known millionaires broke. So what are some keys you could give to people out there about their finances?
I think the first thing is put God first. In tithing, there are three ways to give. Tithing, which is 10%, and then the second way is giving in offerings, which is above the 10%, like missions and things like that. This church just built a church in Africa, and man, I can't wait to do another one. And we're looking, maybe, I don't know, I'm talking out of my head right now, but we've got some missionaries in Romania that maybe we could build a church over there for. But this is we can't outgive God.
Okay, but I'm with you.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm with you on that. But I've known people that tithed,
Right.
gave in the offering. It still seems like they couldn't keep the power bill turned on. And I know God can do miracles. I'm not saying that, but they still would buy a car they couldn't pay for. They still would have 5 credit cards that they couldn't keep the pay. I mean, there's got to be some things, and I know we can cast the devil out of people.
Yeah.
Okay, but we can't cast wisdom into them.
No, can't cast stupid out.
So how do we? So when we look at finances,
this is again my what I'm doing here, and as our church too. We are doing everything again. Next one of the giving is alms and poor.
right?
But the thing is, I try to do is live within a budget, and that's the problem. A lot of people, like you said, want to get. Oh, I had a lady look at me one time. She said, "Pastor, I'm fixing to get a new car." I said, "Well, that's awesome. What's going on?" She said, "I'm fixing to give mine away." And a friend of mine did that, and God gave her a car. I said, "Did God tell you that?" She looked at me and says, well, no, but it happened. I said, "Sweetheart, you're fixing to walk." Because we don't,
Right.
It's not on somebody else's miracle.
Right.
It's on what the revelation that God gave me. Now,
Yeah.
I would say I tried my best to stick by Dave Ramsey's, have the snowball effect. And I do that. We've done it here.
Right.
Right before COVID, we paid off this building. And we didn't know COVID was coming, but
Right.
God spoke to our hearts. And it was over
Yeah.
$1 million building. We're debt free.
Yeah.
And because again, our leadership, our people, myself, our families, to have that emergency fund. A lot of people right now they're living
Right.
off credit cards.
Right.
Have you seen the rates on some of those credit
man.
cards?
Yeah. Yeah.
And 25 years to pay this off if you want to pay a minimum
Right.
payment. But I think the thing is we have to use wisdom and find principles to help you save, put first God, and then save. And
Right.
people think if I do like a Dave Ramsey, then I can't have fun. No, you can't. Building that
Right.
budget, you're putting in there for yourself too.
Yeah.
For your bills. Then you pay your bills, pay that, and save. I know it's a cuss
Right.
word, but people don't. I got it. It's burning a hole in my pocket. Well, hello. But
Well, I've told my kids, and if you put back, and we set amounts out of your payday to
Yeah.
put back, I said, blow the rest of it, whatever you want to, but put this back and do that, and then live within the means of knowing and pencil and paper won't lie.
no,
Lay a pencil and paper out and say, let me look at where we are, and let me look at what's going on, and And I think that's important. It's very important.
And I got a used car. I got, God bless me, our son-in-law and our daughter, they let us have this truck. It was a 2006. And I said, I don't care. I'm not proud. Somebody said, well,
Right.
you're the pastor. You need to have, I don't care.
Right.
I'm not impressed
Right.
with that. I've
Right.
seen that. I'm like you get it, praise God, it's paid off.
Yeah.
And I love it. My son asked me one time, said, Dad, what kind of car, if I could get you any kind of car, what would you get me? What can I get you, Dad? I said, paid off. I don't care.
Look, there's a car that I love.
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's a Chevrolet Spark. And I've shared this. I know people are sick of hearing it, but it's too bad.
Get it again.
I'm working really cheap. Okay. But the Chevrolet Spark, I bought one $12,000 brand new, 45 miles to the gallon. I mean, and it looks like you'd have to grease me to get it in it, but it's got so much room, and I loved it. Put 80,000 miles on the last one I had. But I'd like to have another one, but Chevrolet probably do their wisdom, quit making them. But I'd like to have another one, and I look at them, and I go on CarMax and Carvana. I go on everywhere and look at them, and the payment probably be about $200 a month because I got to get something that's used.
Yeah.
And but I get thinking my truck runs good, 130,000 miles. Janice's car is good, 100-some thousand, but there's nothing wrong with it. Perfect. And I think I could take that $200 and buy a tank of fuel.
Yeah.
And her and I could be all the way to Florida by then. And I get to thinking, well, and I fight the urge, to do that. And I think if you can fight the urge sometimes and look at things you spend your money on.
Yes.
And say, hold on just a second, because I have to make a commitment. With the commitment comes sacrifice. I trade my time for money and my money for stuff.
Yeah.
So there I am.
That's good.
There I am in the midst of all that. And I think we just have to be careful. All right, we've covered money.
Oh, my goodness.
We've covered marriage. Man, we've covered a bunch of stuff. One more final topic I'm going to cover. Let's talk about music. Okay. Now, I know that most pastors and most preachers, most ministers listen to nothing but praise and worship that lifts them up and encourages them and just, puts them in another plane. I understand that.
Right.
But if there possibly was some music that you listened to, that you liked, that you thought was pretty cool, what would it be?
I like the genre of like almost a little more mellow because I'm a little bit older than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love like somebody like James Taylor. Some of
I
that
love
stuff.
James Taylor.
Jazz and stuff like that because some of the stuff they're pumping out today, man, the words and it just
don't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And cursing and sexual overtones and but I like something I can listen to and enjoy and not feel like I'm I'm contributing to sin when I hear it.
I like a little bit of Linda Ronstadt. I try to dance once every morning. I do a little dance, and I think if men and women would do one slow dance every night before you go to bed together, I think marriages would become stronger. But I do a little dance. I do that Tom Cruise thing where he slides down the hall. I do that, and it brings such joy to my wife.
Oh,
I don't think she's laughing at me, although I'm not laughing.
With you, of course.
But I like that. But I enjoy the '70s music. I listen to a lot of that, and I'm pretty much I listen to. Some of that music now, when I listen to it, is a little bit risque.
Yeah.
Like Only 16, and there's some music there. Dr. Hook's got some stuff, and I'm thinking, I didn't really notice a lot of those words at the time.
I'm like you. I heard it some of the other day. It's like, whoopsie daisy.
I don't think you could get by with that now. Well, you could.
Oh, you could get by with it. It'd be a whole lot worse.
Yeah, you could. But I think it's important. And I know, listen, man, you can listen to some good worship music.
Sure.
And it uplifts you, encourages you. I know all that. I agree with that. But I also know that, that Christians watch Christian television, but they don't usually listen to Christian radio. They can usually tell Amazing Grace in 2 notes.
Right.
Okay. And they'll listen to other radio stations. But now a lot of Christians watch Christian TV.
Yes, sir.
They'll watch it, and I got people leave it on 24 hours that watch it. But it's funny how we do with music. It's just a strange thing, but I think about it. I tell you, Steve, I enjoy it. I appreciate what you've done, man. This is a labor of love what you've done, and you really have. And it takes a lot more. If all you had to do, I talked to a great man one time, and he great minister who had done some TV stations, and Buford Smith was his name.
Yes.
And I loved Buford, and he come to my house, and I loved Buford. But he told me one time, he said, John, if I could just take my Bible and go preach and not and back up, that's what I would do. He said it'd be so much easier on me.
Yes.
And but he said I'm too far across the river
Yeah.
to go back.
Yeah.
I've got to continue with the TV and media and the things that he was doing. But he said if I could just take my Bible, and if you could just walk in here with your Bible on Sunday morning, 15 minutes before church, and just sort of smile to everybody and come on in and find you a little place up on the platform. I mean, that would be so cool. But you got to go back in that office. You got to look at the budget.
Yeah.
You got to look at things and think about things. You got to try to manage these gifted people that you have, and that's all. And you're good. And that's part of that apostolic calling, I believe. But you got to see if I've got somebody for the kindergarten class this morning.
Sir. Yes.
Is there anybody going to be in the nursery?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it would be easy if a man could just walk in with your Bible, wouldn't it?
It would be. I laugh, but I always tell our people, I cut up and joke with them. I said, listen, I love the ministry if it wasn't for all the people. Me and Jesus have a good thing going. It's the people out here.
He has to put everybody in the mix.
Everybody. We're having a great time.
I mean, I don't have no trouble until he says, forgive those people.
Those
people.
Those.
If I could just go on about my business, involves everybody else. But it's good.
Yeah.
It's a good day. We're blessed people.
We are. Love God, love people. And that's
the
thing.
Living in a great land, great country. And we're blessed people.
And I appreciate what you're doing and to reach the gospel around the world.
Yeah.
And so thank you for his support.
We've seen so much stuff happen lately. It's unreal. We're 60 countries now with their
Praise
mobile app.
God.
Stuff just has went through the. It's such a mission field.
Yes.
We're finding such a mission field out there, and and it's just and I'll probably cut this part out because I'm confessing. But I mean, I think I wasn't a pastor. I don't believe I was called to pastor one church.
Right.
Okay. I was called to pastor one little church on Shake Rag.
Yes.
And every window was busted out, 4 foot of water in the basement.
Oh,
I looked around for a church everywhere when I felt like God had led me to pastor. I couldn't pry a church door open with a crowbar. Okay. And then he took me down to Shake Rag and showed me that 110-year-old building.
Wow.
Every window busted out, birds flying in and out, 4 foot of water in the basement, refrigerator floating in the basement. Okay. It was purple and green on the inside, and said, here's where I want you to go. And I said, are you mad at me, God? Whatever I done wrong, I repent.
Yeah.
But God bless there. And I was watching this morning baptisms that I done back in 2005 and stuff like that. I was watching people that baptized that are gone to be with the Lord. Many of them are not here now. They're gone. They're gone to heaven. And I see them that are baptized. And I think but I knew that I was just supposed to pastor that one church.
Yes, sir.
I knew when that season changed.
Yes, sir.
And I've got about 50 ministers now that count on me and the team that God has put together, like Connie and Janice and all those. And these ministers are counting on us.
Yes.
They don't even know. They'll get a letter from California or one from New York, and they don't know why they even got it. You know what I mean? And I don't stop and talk about it. I think Kenny Rogers said, don't count your money while you're sitting at the table. But I try to be careful and just do what I'm supposed to do.
Yes, sir.
And keep focused on that. And it really, it just takes the pressure. And this is what I'm supposed to do, is girt those ministers up to stand behind them.
Yeah. When I'm out of my lane, my gifting, my gift is dominant is, you're not going to believe this, exhortation. Mm-hmm. And I could, but my office is a pastor teacher. And before I'm a pastor teacher and before I'm an exhorter, I'm a Christian.
Right.
And I think that's what has helped me keep that in balance. That before I'm anything, I have to live what I preach, or what I preach is not going to be effective.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing is, like you said, but it's staying in my lane. I've had, we do Celebrate Recovery and reaching out to a lot of hurt people in our community. But because when we first started that, everybody wanted to do, well, let's do this and let's do that. I said, and I made some organizations mad because no, that's not my gifting.
Right.
I get frustrated, and you'll get frustrated around me. Because if I'm out of my lane and my joy, buddy, I'm miserable and you're going to be miserable. So I said, here it is. And like you said, you find that's what he's called you to do. And he gave you the grace to do it.
Yeah, it's bliss. I'll tell you what we're going to do sometime.
Yes.
Now, this program is called Just From the Shed. And if you ever get a chance to look at that on Facebook or anything, you'll understand why. most of these interviews I do, I've got an 8-foot by 12-foot shed. It's a storage building.
Oh,
I
no.
got my freezer in it. All my lawn supplies are behind me, the coolers, and my tool bench is on the right-hand side and other stuff. And most people I interview would come to the shed.
Yeah.
And I call it just from the shed because from the shed wasn't available. So I called it just from the shed. And I've had people, and it's very interesting. If you get a chance to look at it, it's pretty cool. But people come. I got 2 little bar stools I set up in there. We set the camera up. I pull the string on the light, and my mom said, she fusses all the time. You need to straighten that shed up. I said, this has got a lot of stuff in it, man. I said, how you think I can straighten it up? I said, there's no more room. It's pretty cool. Sometimes you get a chance to look at that. You won't believe
I will do that.
It's fascinating.
I can't wait.
It's fascinating. All right. Listen, you've been watching Just From the Shed. I've been here with Steve Branch. You'd be blessed if you ever get a chance to be with him. I know that you will be blessed. And I appreciate you watching. Adios.
God bless you.